This is Christopher John Bjerknes. It is May 8th, 2025. I'm wondering if anyone can answer this question. What plans do we have? What plans do we have if they start throwing us into gulags? If they bring us into a war, a nuclear war, and sabotage our military, sabotage our nuclear arsenal, pit the whole world against us, start exterminating us, starving us? Do we have any plans what we're going to do if all that happens? You can bet that the enemy has all kinds of plans to sabotage us. The enemy has taken over our governments, taken over our churches, controls our media, controls the internet, controls our access to all social media, can censor us completely, silence us whenever they want. What plans do we have in place if they start openly attacking us? We have all kinds of people who are now coming out and speaking out against the enemy. And the enemy has been planning for this for 2,500 years. The enemy wants this to happen. The enemy is agitating for this to happen. The enemy is controlling the leading voices in this. Look at what Ye is doing. What is Ye's solution to the war that is going to take place? Ye says, vote for Trump. Keep the Zionist Jews in power. Trump's the greatest. He loves Trump. That's no solution. What is the church's solution? The church's solution is wait for Jesus to come. Or if you're a Muslim, wait for the Mahdi to come. All of these are forms of capitulation and surrender. The enemy created Islam. The enemy created Christianity. The enemy created communist revolution. All of those things are engineered to fulfill the enemy's plans. So what's the alternative? What plans do we have? We don't have a goddamn plan. We don't have any plans. We don't have any networks. We don't have any institutions. We don't have any structures. We don't have communications equipment. If all the power goes out, what if all the internet and all the power and all the water systems and our nuclear arsenals and the military are sabotaged? Just the same way that the Israelis sabotage the communication pager systems of Hezbollah. You don't think they have plans in place for all this? You don't think they've been expecting this for 2,500 years and don't have the ability to set us up with Judas goats and Pied Piper leaders who are going to ensure our defeat in the name of fighting the enemy? Look at the degenerate ass clowns that they are promoting and boosting in social media to speak out against them. These people, one, a lot of them are completely insane. Two, most of them are complete and utter degenerates, sexual deviants, perverts, weirdos, freaks. Three, whenever the elections come around, they tell you to vote for the worst possible candidates to sabotage any effort to combat the enemy and defend ourselves from the enemy. Okay, we know that. I and others have been screaming about that for decades. That doesn't solve the problem. Being aware of all that is necessary, and it's good, and it's great, and it has to happen. And I'm going to continue to do it, and others are going to continue to do it. But that's not a solution. That's only to raise the awareness that we need a solution. We need networks. We need leadership. We need funding. We need organization. We need our own state. Primarily, we need our own state. We need our own military. What are we going to do if they mess up our genetics so badly, as they are constantly doing, that all of humanity becomes infertile? Do we have massive sperm banks in place? Do we have egg banks in place? Do we have samples of all of our ancestors' DNA so that we can regenerate the race if it becomes necessary, as it's looking like it will be? I mean, look at the trends. Look at the trend lines. Everything is going down. We are being set up to be completely destroyed, and we are sitting ducks. We are literally the cattle that they claim we are. We are raised from birth to be their slaves, to be fattened up, and ultimately to be slaughtered by them. That's always been their plan, and they do it to us from birth. They indoctrinate us with Christianity, with Islam, with communism, with mass media that pollutes our minds and completely detaches us from our nature. And we're set up. We don't have any plans. We don't have any leadership that's viable, that's sane, that's credible, that's moral, that's ethical, that's professional. None. Nothing. It does not exist. We are sitting ducks. We are cattle getting fatter by the day and getting ready for the slaughter. And what really bothers me most about this is how all the technologies that we have are not being put to use to better us. They're being put to use to make us worse. They're feeding us degenerate media. They're feeding us these crazy people who are leading us off the edge of the cliff to our inevitable downfall. They are directing us exactly on the course they want us to be on, exactly on the path that they have always planned for. They are setting us up to go to war against them, but to do it under the conditions that they absolutely 100% control. They can turn off the spigot whenever they want. They can turn off the valve. There'll be no more flow of information. They can cut off the internet. They can cut off the water, the power. They can send foreign militaries against us. Trump can get us into wars and then ensure that we lose them. We are in a tremendously vulnerable situation, and it's crazy that we allow ourselves to be hemmed in, to be roped in this way, when we have all of this technology with which to fight against it. But what's happening is that just as they have created a wealth gap between us and the very wealthy, the rich, and how they have incentivized the rich to go along with them and all of their plans and ensure our demise and our destruction, they are also creating an intelligence gap in the same way they created a wealth gap. And they are utilizing artificial intelligence now to dummy people down even further. And they're utilizing platforms like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Twitter and Instagram to dummy everyone down so that information has to be in little tidbits. And then they boost the people who bullshit you and lead you directly into the slaughterhouse. So there is an intelligence gap now where they have very high intelligence and they program the artificial intelligence. Just as they control wealth, they now control intelligence. And the masses have no means to defend themselves from this, just as the poor have no means to defend themselves against the wealthy, who can buy off all the politicians, who can ensure election outcomes. And we have allowed ourselves to enable them to do all of this to us. And we're not doing a damn thing to better the situation for ourselves. Instead, we are cheerleading those who are leading us into this ultimate trap. And what is the ultimate trap that they always wanted to have happen? They always wanted to have the whole world turn against them, but to secretly and covertly control all the leadership to ensure that it leads us into failure in our ultimate demise. And we can see how completely inept this leadership is, and how they make losers like Adolf Hitler supposed to be the model and the hero to emulate, to lead us into ultimate defeat against this ancient enemy that has always been planning to completely exterminate us. We need people who can present viable planning, who can organize, who can establish institutions, most significantly, who can establish a state that can control a military that has the weaponry with which to defeat this enemy and with which to deter this enemy. So that means we have to either take control of the government of the United States, which has the premier military in the world, and end all the espionage and the sabotage that is being conducted against our military, or we need to create an entirely new viable state with a new set of founding fathers, and we need to recruit the best minds in the world to develop our military to the point where they won't dare to attack us, and if they do, we can shut them down. We need espionage systems, we need sabotage systems, we need intelligence agencies, we need psychological warfare operations. Our survival is under threat. We have been raised like cows to graze in the grass and get fat and be stupid and do whatever the cowboy on horseback tells us to do. And they control all of them. All of the big ones are following exactly what they want them to do. And you can look at what's happening in this war between India and Pakistan. You can see how they have complete control over the entire international community. The Chinese are cheering on this war so they can join with Pakistan, take it over, and take over a big chunk of India. We have the U.S., through its silence, complicit in promoting this war. Trump always boasted about how no one would dare go to war when he was in power, but he's not doing a goddamn thing to calm down and cool off and end this war between India and Pakistan. All of Europe is doing nothing to prevent the deaths of millions, potentially hundreds of millions of human beings in a war that could draw in many other nations and is being engineered to do so. And these nations are eager for it to happen. They are cheering it on. Pakistan had horrible horseshit defensive plans in place, and they're just waiting for Pakistan to get its stuff together so that it can counterattack effectively against India. And this could escalate and escalate, and it has got to be stopped. It has got to be stopped dead in its tracks. There needs to be communication and negotiation. This Hindu Zionist party, just as we have Christian Zionists sabotaging America, India has the Hindutva who are Hindu Zionists, who are sabotaging India and have been doing it for the past century. And they are setting up India to engage in religious warfare between the Hindus and the Muslims. And the Sikhs are sitting in a happy driver's seat between them, as they have for several centuries. And for what? What's the big beef? These people are of identical bloodlines. And all of this was engineered when the communists set about to destroy the British Empire during World War II and World War I. They infiltrated and thoroughly controlled revolutionary separatists and secessionist movements all around India. And that broke India away from the British Empire, and it also created the Pakistani secessionist and revolutionary movements so that the Muslims could be partitioned and balkanized and secede from India, and they formed West Pakistan and East Pakistan, which pretty quickly became Bangladesh. And all of this was to create fault lines and balkanization so that people of the same blood could be pitted against one another with one Abrahamic faith, the Muslims, another Abrahamic faith, the communists, and the Hindus, all going at each other's throats. And I'm not saying that started with World War II. That started when Islam started to grab a foothold in India. But that was utilized by these forces to create all these fault lines, just as they created fault lines throughout the Middle East, the way that they divided up Iraq and set up the Kurds and set up Syria and Lebanon and Jordan and Saudi Arabia. They carved up all these borderlines so that there would be peoples who could be pitted against each other, Sunni and Shia pitted against each other, so that ultimately they could kick off a war. And Stalin pulled the same shit in the USSR. He sent all the Tartars out of Crimea and engaged in these massive population transfers throughout the USSR. He moved all kinds of Russians into the Baltics, into Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, all in preparation for what's going on now, where they say, oh, the grandmas are crying, they're persecuting the poor Russians, Ruskies are in danger, we need to have Putin come and save us from these horrible Lithuanians and Latvians and Estonians, they are persecuting us. And then in the Soviet Union, when these Russians would be in an office in Lithuania or Latvia or Estonia or East Germany or Bulgaria, wherever the hell it was, they were in complete control. And all the people in that office, if there were 100 Latvians and one Russian, the 100 Latvians would have to speak Russian and bow down to the Russian in their own country. And there's a lot of resentments that were built up in the Soviet era, and it was easy for Russians, especially Russian Jews, to denounce people and get them sent to gulags. And they sent the very best people of Ukraine, of the Baltics, to those gulags and killed off tens of millions of them. So all of this doesn't exist in a vacuum and didn't come from nowhere. All of this was planned. And part of the plan of all of those Stalinist population transfers, the Tartars out of Crimea, the Russians, into Ukraine, into the Donbass region. All of that was engineered and set up to create fault lines and friction lines where eventually the Russians could claim that Russians were being persecuted, so that after the fake fall of the Soviet Union, they would have a pretext to reconstitute the Soviet Union. And the same process of partition, balkanization, secession, separatism was set up by the communists, by the enemy in India, to create Pakistan and Bangladesh, and to wrest India and Hong Kong and everything else that was part of the British Empire out of the hands of the British, and to pit all these people against one another so that they would eventually go to war with one another. And the enemy has provided India and Pakistan with nuclear weapons technology and with advanced missile technology. They were caught sending those technologies directly to the Chinese, and the U.S. government did nothing to punish them for that, and continues to provide them with technology that they continue to provide to our enemies, to the Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans, the Pakistanis, the Indians, and the Iranians. These people don't come up with these technologies independently. They have Mossad and the Israeli government directly supplying them with these technologies, setting up the conditions for all these wars based upon the fault lines and the lines of tension and friction that they deliberately created when they mapped out the world after they broke apart the major colonial European empires and other empires and destroyed the monarchies around the world. So what's our plan? How do we get out of this mess? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do if they make it illegal to be white? They were trying to pass a law to make it illegal at the federal level to exercise our fundamental human rights to boycott Israel. What if President Trump, by his whimsical fiat, says and gives an executive order that habeas corpus is suspended, that ex post facto is suspended, and they make it illegal to have ever said anything against the nation of Israel, punishable by death. And they get rid of all the ex post facto prohibitions against such laws being enforced retroactively, and they get rid of all due process. They get rid of all habeas corpus. They can just come to you and put a bullet in the back of your head. What plans do we have to resist that? None. Nothing. We are sitting ducks, and we have been raised by birth like little calves out in the field to eat the grass and get fat and get screwed by these people without ever organizing to put up any kind of resistance against it, and without ever being able to seize control over our own fate and take control of our destiny and do something about it as they continue to exterminate us and destroy our genes and destroy our country, subvert us, place degenerate sickos as our leadership class over us as they wage war against us and ensure that we get nowhere and accomplish nothing. We don't have a lot of time to get this done either. Everything they're doing is gaining them advantages and fulfilling their plans. You can be certain that they have absolute plans if the whole world turns against them. and starts to put them in gulags and sets up situations for fighting back against their attacks on humanity, believe that they have a system in place, plans, saboteurs, sleeper agents, crypto Jews, subverted leaders, all of whom will ensure that we get destroyed by all these people. Now, what intelligence agencies and networks do we have to find out all of these plans that they have to subvert all the things that they're doing to destroy us? Nothing. We got nothing. If somebody goes to the federal government and wants to expose something that the enemy is doing, something that Israel is doing, they are immediately attacked by the government. All their information is taken and buried and memory hold. They are persecuted and dragged through the press and ridiculed and smeared. We have nothing like that in place to counter the enemy. And they can turn off the spigot on the internet, on social media, on X, Twitter, YouTube, whenever they want. And they can boost whomever they want, and they can suppress and silence whomever they want. So you can bet your ass that anybody who's breaking through that, anybody who's getting millions of views, is either on their team or is forwarding their agenda without realizing it. So we've got to get out of all these stupid systems that were engineered by them to ensure that we never pose a threat to them and never have the ability to defend ourselves from them. And that includes all the religions that they created, that they utilized to pit brothers of the same blood against one another, just as they've been doing with Protestants and Catholics when they had the 30 Years' War. And they pitted European Catholics against European Protestants and vice versa, and killed 10 million people in a devastating war that threatened to destroy all the good that was coming out of the Renaissance and the rebirth of ancient European greatness. And they had us killing each other, slaughtering our best. They did the same when they introduced Marxism in the revolutions of 1848 and then 1917. They had us killing one another in the tens of millions and setting us back psychologically, historically, traditionally, philosophically, scientifically, again and again and again. So we need to do a hell of a lot better if we are going to survive. We need leadership, we need funding, we need organization. I don't really see people doing anything to gain political control over the United States at this point. What I do see happening is if they promote these ass clowns who cheerlead for Trump in the name of fighting the enemy, and they set it up so that there is some broader movement against the enemy, they're going to utilize that to unify all of their people and to flip the switch on all of the things that they have been setting up. You can bet that they have bombs in place. They have people in place to mass murder hundreds of millions of Americans. They have the ability to sick the Chinese, the Indians, the Pakistanis, the entire what they call the global South against Americans. And they're going to utilize all of this stuff of these degenerates calling people racial slurs, glorifying Adolf Hitler. They're going to utilize that as a pretext for the communists around the world to come and get us and to completely exterminate us. Whenever you hear communists defining what they consider to be their enemy, they call them racists, they call them fascists, and they call them Nazis and homophobes. Those are all the buzzwords that the communists use to unify the whole world against whatever group it is that they want to attack. And that is why they are duping people into embracing, calling themselves Nazis, calling themselves fascists, utilizing racial slurs to demean people and rob them of their human dignity. All of this is being engineered. All of this is being done by design, the same way it was done in Ukraine, so that Vladimir Putin and Lavrov would have a pretext to come in and say, we are coming in to cleanse Europe of its Nazis, to denazify Europe, to get rid of the fascists, to get rid of the racists, and to win the support of the global South against the Europeans. And that's what is being set up and engineered, and we should not step into that trap. And one of the things that is so horrible about all this is the fact that if you want to stand up for whites, for Europeans, if you want to promote the fundamental human rights of Europeans to self-governorship, self-sovereignty, self-determination, the right to preserve their genetic heritage, all of that was established by the founding fathers of the United States. And you don't hear these ass clowns appealing to those facts to set up something that promotes freedom, not dictatorship, not totalitarianism, but something that is founded upon the ancient Greek and the American system of promoting a tribal European white eugenics program to create a sanctuary in which white people can live, white people of good character, white people of high intelligence who are capable of conducting themselves in a civilized and decent manner, unlike these degenerates shaking their asses in front of the camera, promoting adultery, promoting miscegenation, promoting everything that benefits the enemy and works against the self-governance of whites, against the self-determination of whites, against the self-sovereignty of whites, all in the name of fighting the enemy and bolstering the enemy's subversive agents in our government, and proclaiming that the way to fight the enemy is to elect its leaders, including Donald Trump, and to support Trump and his cabinet. Look at Trump's cabinet. We have a director of the FBI who is loyal to Israel first and foremost, and then loyal to India, and is entirely disloyal to the principles of the founding fathers of the United States of America. The Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1790, and as updated in 1795, said that immigration to America should be only of whites of good character. Of good character is a eugenics program. The founding fathers understood that people who vote, that people who become Americans have to be of good character. You can't give freedoms to people who are degenerate, people who are fundamentally immoral, people who are either stupid, crazy, or whose fundamental genetic makeup or upbringing or heritage or culture is all contrary to the fundamental principles of freedom and a constitutional republic. You need more than that piece of paper to have a functioning society that functions under the rules of that piece of paper. If we are going to have a functional, constitutional American republic, then we need the people who are able to abide by that Constitution and can contribute intellectually, spiritually, morally, ethically to making America great. Now, that piece of paper is very fundamental and tremendously important and has been very effective in spite of all of the subversion. So think of how great a society we could build if we had the best people in the world coming to our country or being the basis and constituting the population of our country. It would be incredible. So much better than what we have today, and what we have today is great. Don't let the communists fool you. America is fantastic, but it is being deliberately destroyed. Now, another one of the things that we have to plan for, as I've always been saying, if Trump got into power, our last hope is going to be the court system, because they got the Republicans in control of the Congress. Now, what are we going to do if Trump wages war on the judiciary and refuses to oblige the decisions of the Supreme Court? What plans do we have in place to provide support to the judiciary if the executive branch declares itself the sole authority and the final authority? And what if, as is happening, President Trump says that the Constitution is not the supreme law of the land, as the Constitution itself declares, but instead that he is the supreme law of the land? We have no plans in place as to what to do in that circumstance. We have power of impeachment, but as George Washington expressly warned, the political powers would destroy the separation of powers of the American government and the constitutional authority of the courts, and it would be the political powers that would become a dictatorship over the nation. And that has happened, and both political parties are completely in the hands of our existential enemy. And the Constitution can't do everything. That has to be opposed by the populace, by the citizenry, and it is not being opposed by the citizenry. The citizenry, like those little cavies that are raised up to be fat cows and stupid bulls, just go off into one herd or the other herd, and both are being led into the same slaughterhouse through two different gates. So I'm not trying to promote despair. I am sounding the alarm that we are in existential danger, and we are not doing anything about it. We don't have a plan. And our enemy, on the other hand, contrary to us, has been planning all this out for at least 2,500 years. Our enemy helped bring about the destruction of the ancient Egyptians, the destruction of the ancient Greeks, the destruction of the ancient Romans, has waged wars against its ancient enemies in Iraq. The Babylonians utilized what it views as the modern Roman Empire to destroy the Babylonians. They've got plans in place, believe me.